once the museum started, it was just a flood of people and coming in. And those we wanted, we had to stay for lunch and whatnot every day. Everybody was interested in antiquities and things like this. And one of the reasons here for being removed from society or people, there was just so many people for an 8-year period in the museum that up to here, that I had to get away from it. You hear yourself saying the same thing and repeating, and it was, nothing was negative about it, all good. It's just that physically it wasn't the best thing in the world for me, probably. But company we had.
Talk a little bit maybe about you mentioned the kids' education. Talk about, sort of how you went about educating.
Starting on the coast.
They started out, I guess, 2 days after we moved in. We discovered a brand new, very small little private school. It was
This was on the coast, originally, 62.
It was a pre-kindergarten kind of thing. Totally Spanish. The headmistress spoke English, but the senoritas, the teachers, spoke only Spanish. The kids that went to the school were from everywhere. It didn't matter what they started out speaking. They got into that classroom, they spoke Spanish. And as a result, the children, in a matter of, I would say, less than a month, were totally fluent in Spanish.
It was a Montessori system, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was a modified Montefiore, but really good. That worked very well when they were tiny. Then as they grew up, they needed other ways of getting educated. So we discovered a thing called the Calvert system out of Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore.
Somebody, yeah, I think Baltimore.
It was a, you know it. Okay, it was a system was set up, I gather, originally for foreign service families that were sent abroad for a year or two and then expected the kids to come back to American schools. So what they did was they filled in the children's education in the manner of American public school system plan. So we glommed onto that. We hired, it made a lot of sense, I hired a British lady to come and teach the kids at the house. Set aside a room as a school room with all the blackboards and the globes and books and whatnot. And the tutor came complete with a horse and a dog. So she fit in beautifully. She also turned out to be an avid skier, so that we would have classes all week long, and then when and if the snow fell in Granada, just a couple of hours away, we were gone, all of us. Teacher, kids, mama, daddy, and usually a couple of animals as well. And we had a flat up there. We skied all day, then she'd have the classes in the evening or very early in the morning.
It was loose.
Very loose. So that lasted for a while. Then we switched to an American woman who arrived in a little guest house that we had with a newborn baby. As a matter of fact, she arrived straight from the hospital with a newborn baby and a
good education too,
and a young son, and that worked real well until another friend of ours, a French lady married to an American, decided that she could no longer tutor her two sons in mathematics because they were getting too big and too smart. And so she started an international school so that her kids could get an education and a lot of other people.
That school is now 275 kids in the foremost English-speaking school in Europe, actually.
So anyway, the kids went to that school for a while. Then I guess they outgrew that one, and we sent the two girls to Switzerland to a French school where they spoke only French.
About
So
age 14.
they did the same thing as they had done as babies in Spanish. They learned French fast. So they did their prepping in Switzerland. Scott then was left home alone. He didn't like that at all. So with a little urging, he persuaded us to send him to New England to prep school. I don't,
That was,
does
they
that
all
work
got out early. They were all out by 15 years old. And it was just our own choice. Like
Then
we
they
felt
all-
we would have liked that
They
too.
all ended up in America in colleges, all different. And some of them continued on and some of them dropped out. Typical. But Scott went into the film business. Siri became a full-time sculptor. And my older daughter graduated from Barnard with a degree in God knows what, because she never used it. Never worked a day in her life. And at
Raised
50,
a great family.
at 50, she's got a lovely grown family and is doing just great, living just down the road, as a matter of fact, in Basalt.
A life like everybody's life, you know, just moves on. The business of the self-education or the education at home and whatnot it fit us very well as well, because you could lose if we were going away to Hungary or God knows where, we'd either leave them with a tutor or take them with us to England or France or wherever. It was all part of the education. We were out at least one day a week, if not two, in some dig or other, which they were always along. And then the business of the horses, and it was always doing something one way or the other. Work or not work, they all became their own individuals. I don't know. It's hard to say.
I don't know if they ever learned anything, but I had a very conventional education. I never learned anything, so.
And I had no education.
Oh, but you're very smart. You learned a lot.
Wow. Life, you know.
Anything else, sort of memories from Spain that really stick out? We have 2 minutes left on this tape, so
Yeah.
if we can get one more
Zillions.
question.
Well,
Chispas de la vida.
You got 4 or 5 months, you don't have anything else to do. Who bend your hair?
no, it's just the whole thing was magnificent. Time and place, like anything else, you know. But what applies to one person to another, it's a hard thing to say, you know. You can't even do, well, like, you know, with our own kids, the foremost thing, and I don't know if it came over that way, but the foremost thing is that they develop into their own person, and no matter what it is. And they're all, as most families, first, second, and third child, they're all completely different one from the other. But they are extremely family-oriented amongst themselves, they and their children. I mean, it's like one unit. They're always in contact, always in touch, and yet their lifestyles are as far apart as you can get, loose to free, in any kind of a judgment that you would make. But that doesn't seem to make any difference. They're all tolerant of the other and going. But as grandparents or as parents, you don't get to hear that much, and it's just as well, you know. They should live and live their thing and whatnot. It's, you know, the storybook thing is different. The actuality is you wish them well, and that's it. Give them the freedom.